All right, so Adam Silver ended up getting on the NBC News, and he was talking about the CBA negotiation that's going on between, of course, the owners and the players, and he absolutely said something that pissed the WNBA off. All right, they ended up taking shots at him, which I will show y'all that after this. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
All right, so Adam Silver just dropped an absolute bombshell, and the WNBA, they're furious. But here's the wild part. What he said doesn't just stir drama. It exposes the real reason these entire negotiations are falling apart. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why the WNBA might not even exist in 2026. Yeah, it's that serious. So here's what happened. Adam goes on NBC News for what looks like a routine interview about the league CBA talks. Everything seems normal until he says this, and the way he phrased it, it changes everything.
I think share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
So the main part that I want us to pay attention to is this first part, okay? It's really quick. This clip was really quick, but we need to pay attention to what he said right here.
NBA? Yes, I mean, I think share isn't the right way.
Did you catch that? When Adam Silver said the share isn't the right way to look at it, that one line changed everything. Because here's what most people don't get. When he says don't look at shares, he's basically saying the players will never get what they're asking for. Ever. And the WNBA, they fired back instantly, posting an Instagram story that said, don't want to share Adam Silver with a question mark. They're calling him out publicly. This just went from business to personal. But here's the crazy part. Adam's not wrong. And I'll explain exactly why. First, you have to understand the maths that nobody's talking about. The players want a revenue split like the NBA. And yeah, that sounds fair on paper. But when you actually crunch the numbers, it tells a completely different story.
And by the way, it's not even the owners, the players. So the players get 50% of the money. Where does the rest of the money go? And this is revenue, not profit, not 50% of profits. They want 50% of revenue. So the WNBA costs, let's just make the maths easy. Let's just say it costs 100 million to run the WNBA. It doesn't, it costs way more. When it take into...
Okay, so that right there breaks down the entire problem. That if the league makes $100 million, costs $100 million to run, and players demand a $50 million cut, every single owner loses money. It's a guaranteed loss. No investor on earth is going to agree to that kind of deal. But here's where it gets even crazier. The WNBA isn't built like the NBA. The NBA owns 100% of its revenue streams. The WNBA, they don't even control half of theirs. There are third-party investors. The NBA itself is constantly bailing them out. And the structure is this tangled web where individual WNBA teams are minority owners in their own league. When players demand 50% of revenue. They're asking for something that literally can't exist within the WNBA's current financial setup. And this is where things start to get really interesting.
Positions that benefit from the league not existing. There are players that benefit from the league not existing. And by the way, we know these players that are in the PA have basically diplomatic immunity from getting fired. If Unrivaled goes 5v5, they're going to make a little more money. But you want to know who's not going to make more money? The 60.
Zero professionalism from the WNBA. That's a bold statement, but look at what he's actually talking about. They leaked their own award results just to spite Caitlin Clark. They demanded investigations over things that never even happened. They've had to delete posts after getting called out by their own players. And here's the part nobody's connecting. Some of the players in leadership positions actually benefit if the WNBA collapses. Think about that for a second. If Unrivaled switches to a 5-on-5 format, certain stars would make more money. But you know who wouldn't? The 60 to 70 players on minimum contracts who'd lose everything. This is where it stops being about basketball and starts getting really dark psychologically.
Close to what he said here. We got to dial in right here. He's speaking really fast. Let's listen to this next part.
The NBA, I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making.
I think you should look at absolute numbers in terms of what they're making. Because this could be a big increase, right? We don't see their proposal. the max going from 200,000 to 850,000. That's a big increase. That's a big increase, right? The minimum being over.
We're not trying to get y'all this share money. He's basically admitting it that they're not planning to give the players a bigger slice of the pie. They're just going to tweak the system. Maybe cut costs here, trim expenses there, find efficiencies, but that share percentage? It's staying exactly where it is, and that raises a serious question. Was the terrible officiating last season actually part of those budget cuts? Were they already shifting money around behind the scenes, trying to boost player salaries without touching the revenue split? Because here's the thing that's driving the players absolutely crazy right now.
I believe that we are seeing this type of thing. And look, I think the players should make a lot more money. I think apparently somebody like who knows the WNBA finance really well is like, even if the players got 80% of their merch, and they got like a percentage of ticket revenue, which they actually get none of right now, but it's like, even if you give them 80% of their merch, apparently the total still goes to about only just over $1 million, and they're not going to do.
So here's what's happening. The players are refusing to agree to a salary cap with fixed yearly increases. They want it tied directly to revenue, meaning it would fluctuate every single season. Sounds great in theory, but in reality, it means no one could sign multi-year deals because nobody would know what the cap will be next year. The entire league would become unstable overnight. And get this, even if players got 80% of their merch sales plus a cut of ticket revenue, which right now they get zero of, the total increase would only be about $1 million. That's it. The money they're demanding? It literally doesn't exist. But here's where things start to get really uncomfortable to talk about.
Y'all don't even own half of what's coming into your league. So that 9% might have to stay there the way that he's talking because of how they're falling short already on making enough money to pay for how much the league costs to run, right? So that 9% might have to stay there. I don't know. That's the way he's talking. He's like, maybe not look at it as far as shares. Now, to me, it sounds like he's saying we don't necessarily want to increase that share number. We're just going to get a little bit more efficient here and there within the business.
He just said it. They might actually be using the WNBA as a tax write-off. That means some of these owners could be getting tax breaks for losing money, which completely flips the logic of this whole thing. If running the league at a loss gives them financial benefits and earns them positive PR for supporting women's basketball, why would they ever agree to a deal that makes them lose even more? They wouldn't. It's not bad faith, it's just business. And this is exactly why the players are losing their minds. From their point of view, they're watching the league grow like crazy. They see Caitlin Clark selling out every arena, breaking TV records and driving merch sales. And they're asking, so where's all that money going? But here's what they're missing.
If the revenue split happens, it is essentially a guarantee the owners lose money, and there's no scenario where that's ever going to happen. And I think the players are like, there will never be a situation where they budge on the revenue split. There won't be. If there's no 2026 season, there's not going to be a 2027 season, there's not going to be a 2028 season. I think an argument could be made that it is beneficial that the whole league shuts down, and it allows these players to start fresh.
The NBA aren't just silent partners here. They're minority owners who literally bailed out the WNBA. They're not just investing in individual teams, they're keeping the entire league alive. And those new third-party investors who recently joined, they don't own teams either. They own stakes in the league structure itself, when players demand 50% of revenue. They're not just asking team owners to take a pay cut. They're asking the NBA to take less. They're asking outside investors, people who poured millions into stabilizing the league, to take less too. And guess what? None of those groups have any reason to agree to that. This is classic negotiation psychology. The players think they have leverage because of all the hype and momentum from last season, but do they really? Check this out.
And talking his talk, he was going to settle everything. I thought he was going to fix everything. I called him Thanos to fix it. Man, he talking just like Kathy. He talking just like Kathy, man. He like, look, we not trying to get y'all this share money. We're going to find a way to get those increases going, right? Y'all going to make a little bit of more money, but y'all not going to get any more of this share. I'm sorry. we're not looking at it as shares because y'all not making a profit. Y'all not making close to as much as the NBA is making. So, nah, we not.
Even with Caitlin Clark taking over the world, she's still not enough to save the league. That's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. Yeah, she brought in record attention. Yeah, ratings skyrocketed. But one player, even a once-in-a-generation talent, can't fix a broken business model. And here's where it gets even more complicated. You've got Unrivaled now, and Project B is coming with billions in funding. These leagues are built completely differently. Their investors are majority owners, sometimes even 100% owners, not stuck in the weird, tangled split the WNBA's operating under. But here's the massive problem with Unrivaled that almost nobody's talking about.
Would have added 24 more players, got to like, 60 instead of 44, added 16 more players, made it 5v5 with 10 players per team, and the league becomes infinitely better. But they're so stuck on gimmick basketball that's not real basketball that they've screwed it. Like, I think if Unrivaled was 5v5, I think a lot of other players would be playing. I think Caitlin Clark plays with 5v5.
If Unrivaled wasn't built around gimmick basketball, I'd be all for it. But the issue is the 3-on-3 format. Because if Unrivaled was 5-on-5, this entire conversation would be completely different. Caitlin Clark would probably play. Aya Wilson would probably play, especially if there's a lockout. Instead, they decided to add 2 more teams instead of just adding 4 more players per roster to make it real. Full court basketball. They could have had 60 players instead of 44. They could have made it feel like an actual league, real basketball. But they're stuck on this 3v3 concept, and it's capping their own growth. And that decision just created an impossible situation for WNBA players.
These WNBA posts, I think they might actually be half pushing to shut down the league. And I don't know if that's the worst thing in the world. Because at the end of the day, I think if I would be looking at that option way more favorably if Unrivaled was not gimmick basketball. If Unrivaled was just 5v5, if instead of adding 2 more teams to Unrivaled, they added 4 more players per team, they could have done it.
Structurally, a new league where players deal directly with investors who own 100% of the operation would absolutely be better in the long run. The growth potential is there, no middlemen, no weird NBA bailout structure. It's cleaner, smarter, and gives players more control. But that only works if it's real basketball, 5-on-5, not a gimmick. Because right now, all that momentum from Caitlin Clark's rookie season, the record-breaking playoff ratings, and the massive mainstream attention, it's at its absolute peak. And if there's no WNBA season in 2026, it's gone. For good, this is the moment, the crossroads, and behind the scenes, something much bigger is happening. Something that could decide the future of the entire league.
Like, this reminds me of the we call BS thing. Like, there is zero, and I mean zero, professionalism from the WNBA, and there hasn't been for years. Like, they've leaked their own awards out of spite for Caitlin Clark. They've leaked their own awards out of spite for a player that they're meant to represent. They have given credit, like they have basically demanded the WNBA start an investigation, which they have, and basically called out the league for not punishing people for something that didn't happen, for not punishing a team.
They leaked their own awards out of spite. They demanded investigations for things that never even happened. They got bullied into deleting posts by their own players. And this is the same organization that's supposed to be negotiating for a revenue split. Here's the psychology behind it. When you negotiate from emotion instead of strategy, you lose. Every single time. While the owners are running numbers, analyzing spreadsheets, and building long-term business models, the players' union is posting Instagram stories and calling out Adam Silver in real time. Those are not the same energy levels, and beneath all of this chaos, there's something deeper happening. Something that connects everything.
There's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think
he's talking really fast right there. He said, I think share is the wrong way to look at it because there's so much more money being made in the NBA. And this is the problem, okay? This is the problem that is going on in the CBA negotiation. you can't increase that number to half like the NBA because there are so many other hands in the cookie jar, fam. Like I stated in the last video.
Their share can't go up unless one of the other shares goes down, and that's the entire equation. Either the NBA share has to drop, or the third-party investor's share has to drop. And guess what? Neither of those things is happening. So honestly, Adam Silver's strategy is genius. He's basically saying, we'll raise your actual salaries, real money in your pockets, but we're not touching the percentage split. The max salary jumps from $200,000 to $850K. The minimum salary rises to $300K. Those are massive increases. Actual, tangible wins. But the players don't just want more money. They want structural power. They want ownership of the revenue split. And that's where this whole thing becomes impossible to solve.
It becomes a hell of a lot less complicated. But at the end of the day, with the these players could 100% get paid more if there was an entire league 5v5 with structured league, not named the WNBA, because of the weird business deals, or not weird business deals WNBA made to stay afloat. The problem is,
I think they might actually be pushing to shut the league down. What if that's true? What if some of the players in leadership positions genuinely believe everyone would be better off if the WNBA collapsed so they could all jump to new leagues with cleaner, more profitable structures? Think about the incentives that if you're a star player, you're getting paid no matter what. Endorsements, overseas deals, brand money. So maybe a fresh start sounds good to you. But if you're player number 60 on a roster, barely holding on to a minimum contract, you lose everything. Your career ends overnight. And that's the breaking point nobody's talking about. The one that could tear the league apart from the inside.
Players are shooting themselves in the foot because this momentum is never coming back. Because this league probably, if the 2026 season doesn't happen, the WNBA is done. It will never happen. It's done. I think every one of those owners that has built any of those facilities, I think they all have get out of jail free clauses, all those expansion teams. They can use their stuff.
If the 2026 season doesn't happen, it might never happen again. All those new expansion teams with their shiny facilities, they all have exit clauses. Those arenas can be repurposed for concerts, volleyball, even esports. Anything but the WNBA. The owners are protected. But the players? They've got nothing. No season means no paychecks. No momentum means unrivaled becomes the only option. And it's still 3-on-3 gimmick basketball that the top stars won't even touch. So what happens next? The deadline's closing in. The players are demanding something the owners literally can't give without losing money on every dollar of revenue. The owners are offering huge salary bumps, but they won't touch the revenue split percentage. Both sides are dug in deep. The WNBA just had its biggest season ever. Caitlin Clark brought in attention the league has never seen. And somehow that might be exactly why it all collapses, because the players think they have leverage, but the business math says otherwise. This isn't about fairness anymore. It's about maths, and the numbers just don't add up.